Well, I mean, there are some policies that are standard. We have state law about,
Right.
when you can start looking at absentee ballots and what the dates are for different things. We do have some of that, but yeah, I mean, the policies are sort of standardized, but the implementation is not. And, some of the county clerks like it that way. Georgia is very centralized, and there's a lot of stuff going on in Georgia from the top that is not very positive and looks pretty bad. Whereas Missouri being so decentralized, it would be very hard for someone here to make a difference and swing the election. And I just tangentially to that, last week I heard the director of elections for the director of the Board of Elections in North Carolina made a comment about hacking, which I thought was very apt, and I'm just going to share it with you. And he said, voting machines are at a state of the art now where voting machines are really not hackable. He said, but what is hackable is the mind of the voter. And I thought that was very interesting because the hacking is is gone way upstream. It's disinformation and misinformation and things like that.
Thank you.
Gloria, thank you. This question is from Nancy Price. What could we do to make the system work better? And then how can we support our county board of elections?
Well, if you want to support the county board of elections, go to work, be a poll worker for sure. And, forward all their, they have a really good website. They just literally a month ago hired a new public information person. And she's great. She's very social media savvy, and she's doing a lot of really good, if you follow them on Facebook or Twitter, the County Board of Elections, she's doing a really good job. And I recommend forwarding all of her information because it's just chock full of good stuff. It's very helpful. How can the system work better? Well, we need a lot more money for voting, a ton more money so that's a congressional thing, and we have to. That's an issues thing to lobby our Congress people, our senators, and local state government as well, because Missouri Secretary of State is really not that keen on supporting the local jurisdictions with funds. They've been very stingy with funds. And of course, the best thing that could happen in Missouri to make our system work better, right, which is pertinent to right now, is to just get rid of excuses for absentee voting. We should have no excuse absentee voting, and we should have much more early voting, and that would make the system operate much better.
Gloria, just so you know, that Women's Voices has been out in front, having our members contact, especially Senator Bond, because he chairs the committee that kind of oversees the funding for elections. So we've been out there, just hasn't moved on the Senate side, but I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you. This comes from Ann Ross, who had been the prior advocacy director for Women's Voices. And I thought about this the other night listening to the debate. What happens when the armed watchers show up at the polls, legal or not?
So that's a good question. I mean, there are legal poll watchers. There is such a thing as a legal poll watcher, and you know about that, I'm sure. But to be a legal poll observer, you have to register in advance with the Board of Elections. And you're a certified, you have to show them your credentials, and and they give you a polling place, and and you're not allowed to talk to the poll workers. You're only allowed to observe. So they're pretty strict rules for that. I think they call them challengers. But they're not really authorized to challenge. They can watch and they can observe, but they can't say to a poll worker, no, you can't do it that way. These informal poll watchers that I heard, Trump sort of egging on the other day, I mean, that is a problem. We see what happened in Virginia just last week when people showed up and tried to disrupt early voting in Virginia. And, the only thing I can say is, we do have rules in Missouri, and most jurisdictions have similar rules, that you can't be closer than 25 feet to a polling place. Some jurisdictions is more than 25 feet. It's 50 feet or 100 feet. And people do complain about that. And I mean, I don't know how easy it is for just a regular poll worker to go outside and say, "Excuse me, sir, you're too close." On the other hand, if you're going to call the police, we sort of don't want police around our elections either, because the police presence, and there's not supposed to be a police presence at polling places, because that's an intimidation factor. So I think we're going to have to be vigilant and watch what's happening. And, I'm sure many of you are volunteering for election protection this year.
Yes.
And I think that is a very, very good tactic to watch out for those things. But I also think that a lot of this talk about poll watchers and stuff is bluster, and that there won't be that much of it. But that's my just optimistic Pollyanna view. I could be completely
Gloria,
wrong.
I appreciate you bringing up voter protection, because a lot of us are on their calls every Monday, and a lot of us have volunteered to already participate in voter protection. And those of you on the call who are not familiar, their number is 1-866-OUR-VOTE. Anyone can call that number. If you were at the polls on the day of election day and you see anything that doesn't seem right, call 1-866-OUR-VOTE, and we have a station set up right here in St. Louis, and we can send people out to observe, and we will take care of it. But Gloria, thank you for mentioning that. Another question we have is, how many people work full-time for the St. Louis County, and how many of them have been there long-term?
Great question, really.
And that was from Mary Clemens.
Mary Clemens, okay. So, well, in between elections, there are right now between 60 and 65 full-time people at St. Louis County. And they are very lean. It is a very lean operation. There is nobody extra there, I guarantee it. But now, I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure they've doubled at this point with temps, because they've got people doing a million different things. By the weekend before the election, there will probably be 60 to 100 ballot openers, temp people, ballot openers, which will more than double the population of the office right there. In terms of how long they've been there, some people stay a really long time. I met some people there who were there. Let's see, Melissa Moore, who works at the front desk, has been there 38 years. And she's like the face, you walk up and you see her, and she's just great. And she just doesn't know how to leave. I mean, I was with her on election night in March, and she was working one of the intake tables. She was working one of the intake tables when the ballots were coming back, and she's been there 38 years. So, she's not young anymore, and her knees were killing her. She was like hobbling around. She said, "My knees are killing me." And I said, "Well, why don't you sit down?" She said, "No, I'm not sitting down. This is what I do. This is election time." So she's typical. Another guy, Cliff Freebersizer, he works a lot on absentee ballots, and he has been there about 15 or 20 years, and he's over retirement age. And I talked to him once. He told me, I said, "Well, how, you've got your years in, you can get your retirement. Why are you still here?" And he said, "It's in my blood. I just can't leave." He said, "Maybe I'll just stay for one more presidential. I just want to be here for one more presidential." And so I just saw him last week, and there he is. He's still there working, because it's in his blood. And this happens to a lot of people. You read about administrators all over the country who they just sort of stumble into election work, and they attach to the high, and it's a high, and they get attached to the idea of doing something bigger than themselves, and they believe in the work. I mean, there are plenty of people who start out and go, "Oh, forget about it. This is not for me." I mean, there's a funny story about an election administrator in a small jurisdiction in Tennessee, I believe, and like 70% of election administrators across the country, he was elected to the job. And he got elected in November, and he quit in December. before he even started the job. And what happened? He just became so anxious. He just realized he could not handle the pressures of the job, and he just quit before he started. So it's the full range.
Full range. A nice lead into this question, since we need so many poll workers, and it sounds like we may be having a difficult time getting them. This question is also from Ruth. Have they considered letting poll workers do half-day shifts?
Another really good question.
Someone else mentioned that there have been places that do that, but the first person cannot leave until or unless the second person shows up. So please address the doing both.
Well, I've talked to them about that because, you know, I would like to. I can't do the 4 a.m. wake up anymore. I'm wrecked for days, you know. So yes, I've asked about that, and the problem they have is they can't get enough people for one shift, let alone enough people for 2 shifts. It's very hard to get people to do the job, and because it doesn't pay that much. Also, you know, they see the problem of shift work as, what if the second person doesn't show up, as your question mentioned. And, you know, even people promise, but they don't show. And so, you know, that is a problem. Another problem would be a sort of chain of custody issue. Like, you know, you want the same people doing the same process all day long so that it's even and equitable and fair the whole day, and that somebody doesn't come in and change the rules halfway through the day. So it is a problem. It's a big problem. Shifts are just tough to do.
Thank you. So this next question comes from Pam Myers, and she has been, I think, Pam, you said you've been an election judge. Her question is concerns about not having plastic screens at the voting tables when the voters check in. It was not there at the August primary when I worked as a voting judge at the Hazelwood Central High School, and we had over 1,300 voters that day. Has that been addressed, or have other people brought that up to our election people?
I don't know the answer to that about shields. I thought there was some movement in that direction, but that would be I can just speculate that would be a giant cost for which they don't have any money. It looks like Pamela knows the answer to that.
They did in Columbia, Missouri, because my sister-in-law is a voting judge there, and she mentioned that, and I went, no, we didn't hear. They do it. They did. And I saw pictures of it. So I thought, well, why didn't we? When we had 1,300 people go through us that day. You know,
I'll just add from the city. I volunteer at the city board of election to do a poll worker, and we had shields at our place.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the answer to that is. I thought I heard them talking about doing that this time, but you know, it's.
Okay.
But you know, so you all probably read about what happened in St. Charles County, right? About the letter that went out to poll workers about masks. Did you hear about this?
No.
Oh my God! So this is just last week. Poll workers in St. Charles County got a letter from the Board of Elections about masks, and they said, you know, we can't force everybody to wear masks when they vote. So here's what you can do. And literally it said it almost in these words. It said, have a mask nearby you, maybe hang it off your ear. And if a voter comes in and complains that you're not wearing a mask, here's the words they used: act surprised. Act surprised, you know, oh, you want me to wear a mask? Oh, I'm so sorry. Put on your mask, take care of the voter, and when they leave, you can take it off again. That was the directive from the Board of Elections. Absolutely insane. It did not go over well with the poll workers. But, you know, in St. Charles County, they don't have a mask mandate the way we do in St. Louis County. So in St. Louis County, you can tell everybody you have to wear a mask. And in fact, those of you who worked the election in August know that they hired 200 extra temp workers to stand outside the polling places as, you know, health monitors or whatever they called them, and told people they had to wear a mask. I mean, that's a big ask, to ask a poll monitor to do that, because you might have a belligerent person who says, you're not going to make me wear a mask. But I don't think they had a lot of big problems with that. But the board, the overriding board insisted on that. And so they had to go out and hire 200 people at the last minute to do that job.
Thank you. This question is for Becky Clausen, and her question is, can the absentee ballots and mail-in ballots be opened before the polls close?
No, they can be processed, but they can't be tabulated. They can be opened. Okay, so that's one of the, has anybody here ever worked as a ballot opener? Oh, there's a cool job. When I heard that there was a thing called a ballot opener, I thought that is hilarious. How can there be such a thing as a ballot opener? But there is. And I can just tell you very quickly how it works. So you can start processing, preparing the ballots for voting, for tabulation, 5 days before the election. So that's the Thursday before the Tuesday. And they have ballot openers, human ballot openers, and there's also a mechanical ballot opener. And the mechanical ballot opener looks like a slicing machine in the deli, in your deli, you know, it goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It just slices off the top edge of the envelope. So now you could pull the ballot out, but they don't do that right away. First they check the envelope, and they have to match up how many ballots there are, how many envelopes there are, and it's a lot of accounting and accountability to do that. And everybody works in a bipartisan team. So they have out in the warehouse, they will have 60 people. Last time they had 30 teams. They may have more this time. And starting on Thursday at like 7:30 in the morning, they slice the ballots, and then the ballot openers sort of check them, and then the ballot openers, and there's a whole process for that. And I have that here. I can show you. They've created a whole, I don't have it in front of me. They've created a whole process for how to open the ballots. And a lot of what the ballot openers do, first of all, is bipartisan. You can't open a ballot without another person next to you. And they pull the ballot out of the envelope. They save the envelope. They look at the ballot. They're not counting the ballot, but they have to make sure that it'll go through the tabulating scanner. So a lot of ballots come in crumpled. They have coffee stains on them. They're folded up wrong. And so they have to prepare all those so that they will go through the scanner, or if they won't go through the scanner, if they're torn, they put them on the top of their batch pile, and they have to be duplicated. So someone has to run those through has to copy them so that they're flat enough to go through the scanner to be tabulated. So all of that happens in the 5 days before Tuesday. And then on Tuesday, they can run them through the scanner. And in fact, in St. Louis County and in many other places, the absentee ballots are the first ballots that are tabulated. So, you know, there's a myth out there that the absentee ballots are only counted if it's a close election, and that is just not true. And in St. Louis County in particular, if you're a person, an election junkie who follows on election night the returns as they come in, either on TV or on your computer, there's usually a drop sometime close to when the polls close, 7:30, like that. And the first tally that you see in St. Louis County are the absentee ballots. So that's how that works. Does that answer the question? That's a long way of answering a short question again.
I think it does. Hold on, I'm going through the questions. Hold on, I'm seeing if we have any from people that have not. Okay. Nancy Price mentioned that St. Louis County suggested if a voter refuses to wear a mask, to ask them to vote curbside in their car.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, but wouldn't that take two of the judges out of the polling place? And really, it's my understanding that's who would have to go out and do that.
Yes. Yes, it's a total rally killer. It just slows everything down tremendously. And it's going to be interesting what happens if people won't wear a mask. I don't know the answer.
Okay.
I just want to add one thing about the ballot openers and all that stuff.
Okay.
My phone is not supposed to be ringing, excuse me.
That's okay.
As I went through and interviewed people and observed people and did all the stuff, I have to tell you, I could never tell who was a Democrat and a Republican. honestly. And we live in a time when everybody knows what everybody is, right? And we wear we wear our political leanings on our sleeve, and we can hardly talk to people of the other political persuasion. But when they get, I'm telling you, when they get into the Board of Elections, you really don't know. And I talked to people for a long time. I could not tell. And I was very impressed by how everybody checked their identity at the door. And it's a very tightly watched procedure in terms of Republicans and Democrats agreeing, agreeing to everything, signing off on everything. And Eric Fay once said to me, you know, here in this election facility, if you want to open the door to the tabulation room, you need a Republican and a Democrat. If you want to open the door to the ballot preparation room, you need a Republican and a Democrat. And if you want to okay a voter registration card, you need a Republican and a Democrat. And same with a ballot and all that stuff. He said the only thing you can do around here without a person of the opposite political party is go to the bathroom. Okay, what's next?
Another question from Lisi. With all the confusion about different rules for absentee and mail-in ballots in different counties and across the country, wouldn't a centralized system with one set of rules be advantageous?
Sure, if you get all the states to agree on it.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh.
I mean, that is, it's really literally a states' rights issue. People will fight that to the death. That's how it was originally set up, and people don't want to change that. And look, we had the Voting Rights Act of 1965 that Shelby versus Holder gutted in 2013. That was a national standard, right? And the Supreme Court gutted that, and now we don't even have that. And as you know, look what happened. I mean, literally like weeks after Shelby versus Holder, Georgia and South Carolina and Texas and all those states were just turning their procedures around and doing all the bad stuff they used to do before, and continue to do that, as we just saw in Texas, where Governor Abbott just said one drop box per county. So yeah, national standards would be great, but who's going to agree to them?
Women's Voices has been very active, and we have invited our members multiple times to watch the movie Rigged, the voter suppression handbook. So I think a lot of us are aware of that, but it just is amazing how many things continue to happen every day. We've got a few more minutes, and I don't see any new chats. I guess I'm going to ask, how did Eric and Rick get to their positions? I was too lazy to type it into the chat.
Well, so Rick took a sort of traditional route, which is the political route. He was a state legislator for many years. He was school board guy and state legislator, and he ran against forgetting his name, Stenger, and lost by a hair. So he's an old Republican stalwart, and he was he didn't have a job, and they appointed him to the position, which is pretty typical to get appointed through that political route. But he's one of those people that does not behave like a Republican. That you can't tell, and he's very good, and he's a very solid person. I have great respect for him. Eric came up sort of the professional way. It does help to have a political background. He did work as an aide for, I'm blanking, someone in St. Louis County, and that got him political cred. But he did that after having started. He went to work at the Board of Elections when he was in college to pick up extra money, and he literally, it got in his blood. He started working, like in the warehouse, and just worked his way up, and eventually, he got a degree in political science, and did all those things. And then he tried to move up, and they said, well, you don't have any political experience. So he said, okay, I'll go get some. So he went out and got a job as a political aide. And then in 2015, when the previous Democratic director was fired because she had some problems with some administrative problems, he got the job.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the clock. We've got a few more minutes. I know Gloria is too nice to plug her book, but I'm going to plug her book. And before we let all of you come into the chat, we asked for where can you get the book? So you can get it at Barnes & Noble, you can get it at Amazon, but she also shared that there are some local booksellers that can order the book. And one of those is in Kirkwood Webster, the novel, what is the name of it, the bookstore
Novel
again?
Neighbor, Novel
Okay.
Neighbor. She'll order it. Yeah.
Wonderful.
I would like
it
Oh, okay.
really has been an honor to get to listen to you and
Oh, you're
to
very kind.
answer all of these questions coming from a lot of different perspectives. You know, it's with election day like 33 days away now and everything that is going on. I think there's still a lot of fear if the election is going to be, honest. And at least from my perspective, what you have shared, what you have observed, we can feel very confident and comfortable that here in St. Louis County, and I did not realize we were one of the top, 25 or 30 in the country in terms of registered voters. I know I do have one question. When they let us check the ballots that have been rejected, did we have an unusually high number of rejected ballots in August, or why were we allowed to do that? And I know that they changed the back of the envelope.
Yeah, well, I think it was an unexpected surge. I mean, there was a sudden surge in absentee ballots because of the pandemic, and it had really never been a problem before. I don't think you can compare rejected ballots in the past to rejected ballots now, because the volume was so immense and there were so many people who had never voted absentee before that it was like, it was at the back of the ballot was either invisible or a total mystery. And of course it was totally incomprehensible in some ways. And I asked Eric about it and he said, it had never been a problem before. And because they never really re-examined it before because it had never been a problem. And so all of a sudden they had this thing. And I know there's probably somebody on this call who was involved in the redesign of the back of the ballot. And it was very refreshing to see that they took basically the mock-up that was sent to them and they implemented it. And it's so much more clear now. But I'm very curious to know what the rejection will be this time, because there are even more people voting first-time absentee. They don't even look at the back of the ballot, of the envelope. They don't even know they're supposed to sign. And it's very confusing for a lot of people.
Well, it's in a bigger box this time, and I'm sure that the voter protection people will be working on that.
But I should tell you, this is very cool. I'm going to give you some inside information that very few people know. They are working on, it's not for sure yet, but they are working on a system that will put us out of business for making those calls. And that is that they're working on a robocall system, hoping to get that implemented so that you take all the ballots that should have been notarized that weren't, and you put them in a batch and you put that on a robocall, and you get a call that says, "Hi, this is the Board of Elections. We got your ballot, but it doesn't have a notary. Here's how to fix it." Or you take the ones that don't have a proper signature on the back and you say, "Hey, we got your ballot. It's not signed. Here's how to fix it." So they are working on that. I have some questions about whether a robocall will be effective, but it's much faster and much more efficient than all of us getting on the phone and dialing everybody individually.
Right. Gloria, thank you. And I want to thank all of our Women's Voices members and maybe some friends who joined us today. And I do want to invite you to our next Women's Voices program, which is going to be next Thursday night. And it's going to center around Amendment 3 and why, 2 years ago it was yes on Clean Missouri, and now it's vote no on Clean Missouri. And you will have all the information you need. So when you talk to your friends and family, why are we voting no? I thought we already voted it in. So I encourage you to sign up for that meeting. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And
Thank
to
you.
know that this author is a member of Women's Voices, that's the icing on the cake.
Well,
Gloria,
thank you.
thank you. Thank
Thank you
you,
very much.
everyone. Be safe and tell everybody, make sure that they know that the last day to register to vote is October 7th. Voting is our voice. Voting is our power. And it is up to us to spread the word. So thanks, everybody. It's been wonderful. And I hope this is the first of many Lunch and Learns through the Advocacy Committee. Thank you. Stay safe. And
Thanks,
Gloria,
everybody.
thank you.
Thank
It
you.
was awesome. A round of applause.